Hey guys, so I noticed that only a small percentage of the people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you like my content, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications to make sure that my content gets to you on time. Hey guys, so earlier today I posted a community poll on what guides you guys wanted to see. And an overwhelmingly number of you guys said you guys want to see a guide on how to assess your board strength. So basically, this topic is very difficult, so I've decided to divide this into multiple videos. I'm probably going to do it in 3 different videos. So the simplest and what I'm going to do first is the early game. In the next video, I'm probably going to talk about the mid game board strength, so that's probably the hardest. So for the people who are most interested, this is probably the video to check out, and then the last one is going to be how to cap out your late game board. So let's go ahead and get started about early game. Early game, like I said, is pretty simple. Definitely the simplest. Basically, you need to decide whether you want to play strongest board for win streak, or whether to econ and then try to, essentially gather a bunch of gold and then use that gold later. So when you try to econ, usually you're playing for lose streak, and your goal is to kill as many units as possible. So let's first talk about what you need to play for win streak. As usual, playing for a win streak is usually just a combination of playing frontline plus backline. In the very early game though, what you want to do is you want to try to either have basically have a 2-star unit with if you have a tank, you want a tank item on it. If you have a carry, you want a carry item on it. Just want to make sure that items like Sunfire and Merlot do count for carry items. And then also that your carries don't have to be necessarily backline carries like Caitlyn. It can also be assassins or even like bruisers. So in this case, Talon and Trundle are great backline DPS. So basically in general, if you have a 2-star frontline with the item and a 2-star backline with the item, you are very strong. If you have a 2-star if you have a 2-star, any 2-star at all with an item, that's usually enough of a reason to win streak. So either that can be a 2-star Darius with like a Bramble, or like a 2-star backline with like a Static Shiv, which would be definitely enough to win streak. Let me just give you an example. This is one of the games I played earlier today. I got an early 2-star Darius, so I slammed Beastcoast on him. In this case, my backline, I have 3 backliners: Caitlyn, Kog'Maw, and Talon. In this case, my comp isn't perfectly balanced because I have 3 backliners and 1 frontliner. So then, which is my next point, which is basically activate your carry's relevant synergies, and then you want to balance out your comp as well. So in this case, Darius 2-star wants bodyguard, Caitlyn 2-star wants snipers, Talon 1 wants assassin, right? So in this case, I have a Caitlyn, and I have snipers for her. I have a Darius, but I don't have bodyguard for him, right? So maybe a stronger board right here will be Poppy over Talon. Unfortunately, this is not the case. So my board is not super strong, but nonetheless, I try to play for one streak here. I actually end up losing the very next fight because I don't have the. So you can see I end up losing the very next fight because I don't have the relevant synergies. Then later in the game, I go ahead and rebalance out the comp by adding Poppy into the mix, and suddenly the comp is a lot more balanced. At this point, I also try to do 1 carry item, 1 tank item, and like 1 carry item. So in this case, my tank item is still Thieves Glass for Darius, and my carry items I have Decaf for Talon, and then Shojin for Caitlyn. Right here you might want to ask, why don't I put the death cap on Caitlyn, right? Because I might as well, since in this case she would be a 2-item carry. Well, in this case, just because Caitlyn's spell usually overkills anyways. Whether if you have death cap on her, she'll probably one shot. If you don't have death cap on her, she'll probably one shot regardless. So in this case, putting death cap on Caitlyn is usually a waste of slot. And early game, honestly, it's just that simple. Basically, like I said, try to balance out frontline items with backline items. Make sure to always itemize your 2-star units or your strong units. In this case, Talon 1 is a very strong unit. So Talon 1 is often worth itemizing over even 2-star Caitlyn sometimes because of how strong Talon 1 is. And yeah, usually just by doing that, you're good to go. So then let's talk about the next way to play early game, which is playing to kill units. So a lot of times you can't really win all your fights. So if you can't win your fights, what do you have to do? So you want to preserve HP while you econ. So often this case is to play the cheapest board that can still kill 1 or 2 units. A lot of times the easiest way is to play a Blitz plus 2 DPS units. So something like a Blitzcrank plus maybe like 2 Ziggs is a pretty good way to kill units, or like a Blitzcrank plus an Ezreal, maybe like 2 Ezreals is a great way to kill units. Or to play multiple assassins. So here's an example I have of an early game that I'm just trying to go ahead and coast by. Here, I actually made a mistake. So, but basically, my early game, I'm playing 3 DPS units. So clearly, my comp is very imbalanced. I have no items on. I don't have any items on my 2-star units. So I don't have a 2-star I have a 2-star TF, but I have no items on it, so I'm still pretty weak. My goal is to kill 1 unit, so I play 2 assassins and then another backline carry, in this case TF, hoping that TF can hit the same unit as my assassins and try to kill a unit. In this case, I do make a mistake. I'm pretty sure Talon is stronger than Echo here. I should have played the Talon over the Echo. I can sell the Echo and the Trundle and the Ziggs to make 10 here. And then by doing that, I can econ and play the strongest board. And by the strongest board, I mean the strongest board to kill units. Right here, Talon, Twitch, and TF would kill units, but would not win fights. And that's exactly what I'm looking for in terms of econing and in terms of killing units. Okay, so that's the 2 ways to play early game. Finally, the early game, the big early game mistake I see a lot of players making is that even when you're trying to econ up early game, even when you're trying to econ and try to like make 10 and stuff, a lot of times I see people sell pairs that they shouldn't sell So this is the case where, like, let's just say you're missing front lines. Don't sell your Darius, don't sell your Camille's, right? Because basically the moment you hit your Darius and your Camille's, you're pretty strong and you can actually play for a win streak. So I see people like sell like 2 Darius and 2 Camille's to hit the next econ threshold all the time. If you're missing front line, don't do that. Just take the econ loss. Just know that like by holding the Darius and Camille pair, you can actually get strong by hitting the front line. So often the case is that I'll go ahead and make a Darius and then immediately sell the other 2 Camille's to make econ. Or if I hit the Camille, I'll immediately sell the Darius to make econ. And then similarly, the moment if you have a strong front line, go ahead and sell your other pairs. Like maybe if you're running a Leona 1 front line, you probably don't need the Darius pairs or the Camille pairs. Even though they're good, you can go ahead and sell them for econ because you already have your front line. So the same thing applies for backline. Sometimes I'll see people with like a Twitch pair and Ezreal pair and like a Infinity Edge on the bench. They'll go ahead and sell their pairs, but what they don't realize is that by keeping your pairs, you have the potential to get strong in the very, very short term. So make sure to not sell your pairs if you're missing that type of unit. So missing frontline, don't sell frontline pair. Missing backline, don't sell backline pair. And then the last early game tip, which will lead very well into the next video, is to basically try to think about synergies into something that like you can tangibly think about. Like for example, scrap. You can essentially boil this down to 60 HP for the entire team. Because it's hard to like really value what 20, like what if you read the scrap text, it's kind of hard to evaluate exactly what it does, but just by making it into something like very, very digestible, like 60 shield for the entire team, it makes it much easier to think about. So like Arcanist, you can just think it about as 20% more DPS for your AP units. And then Bodyguard it's a little bit confusing, but Bodyguard is roughly about 100 HP and 70% taking care versus physical damage. So how I did this math is it's a little tricky. You have to understand exactly what armor does in League of Legends or in TFT. But yeah, Bodyguard is about roughly 70% taking care versus magic damage. And then by doing this, you can kind of roughly mathematically estimate how which unit to replace with which unit. So here I have an example. It's not an early game example, I know, but it still kind of illustrates the point. So basically, I have this Talon. He's my team's entire DPS. I would say like 90% of my DPS is on this Talon. Okay, and I have this Ziggs, and this Ziggs is currently providing scrap value and Arcanist value. And in my mind, or in Twitch chat, a lot of people asked, why don't I play Jinx over Ziggs? So what you need to value right here is break down the synergies into its basic components. What does Arcanist do for your team? It provides your AP caster, in this case Talon, with about 20% more DPS. Probably a little bit less because he does mix of physical and magical. So let's just say maybe 15% DPS. And let's just say if Talon's doing X amount of DPS, let's just say I don't know 100,000 DPS, 100k DPS, which is a lot. If I put in Jinx, will she be able to match the DPS lost by taking out Arcanist? So if Talon was doing 100k, can Jinx do roughly about 15k damage? Or like in this case, maybe like 50k to 20k damage. So in this case, a naked Jinx will not be able to do as much damage as what Arcanist provides for Talon, and hence, I would never take out Ziggs for Jinx. So now this is just like a pretty simple way to like think about things. The math gets a lot more messy for things like CC and like other type of effects, but in general, that's how you should think about how to like mini max your synergy. And just to continue this example, let's just say instead of this Ziggs giving me 2 Arcanists, what if this Ziggs was giving me 4 Arcanists? So 4 Arcanists would only give me 20% damage for this Talon and 45% for all other Arcanists. Alright, for all my Arcanists. And then none of my Arcanists are actually carries. So dropping down from 4 Arcanists to 2 Arcanists is a worthwhile trade. But dropping down from 2 Arcanists to 0 Arcanists is not a worthwhile trade. Because 4 Arcanists does not benefit Talon, while 2 Arcanists does benefit Talon. So basically, it's not the best example for early game. But basically, a lot of times your early game essentially revolves around that as well. Knowing which traits benefits your 2-star and 2-star carries with items, and making sure to activate those traits. And yeah, it's a little bit long-winded. This is kind of what I want to start covering for early game. And this will help me start talking about mid game as well. So I think this is a great start.